5:28, 11:55 p.m. ChatGPT, sure. Here's a captivating, engaging story for you. The village of Elmsford had always been a quiet place. Nestled between lush green hills, with its cobbled streets and small stone cottages, it looked like something out of a fairy tale. The residents went about their lives, working the fields, tending to animals, and celebrating local festivals. For the most part, nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. But that all changed the night the stars vanished. It started subtly, a slight shift in the sky. The constellations no longer formed their familiar patterns. At first, people assumed it was just a trick of the weather, a bit of fog or clouds. But the days passed, and the sky grew darker, as though the very stars had abandoned the earth. The moon, too, looked strange, smaller and dimmer than ever before. The village elders, who had seen many seasons, could not explain it. Soon, fear crept into the hearts of the villagers. What had happened to the stars? 5:28, 11:55 p.m. ChatGPT. Among the villagers was a young girl named Isla. She had always been a dreamer, staring at the stars at night and imagining faraway places. She was different from the others, unafraid of the unknown, driven by a deep curiosity and a sense of adventure. Her grandmother, an old woman who lived in a cozy cottage at the edge of the village, often told her stories about the stars. She spoke of them not as distant lights, but as beings ancient and powerful, with their own will and purpose. One night, as Isla sat on her grandmother's porch, staring at the now completely starless sky, her grandmother came outside with a worried look. "The stars are gone," she said softly, as if the mere words were too heavy to say aloud. "And when the stars vanish, it is a sign of something terrible to come." Isla looked at her grandmother, her eyes wide with curiosity and concern. "What do you mean, Granny? What could happen?" Her grandmother leaned down, her face serious. "The stars are more than just lights. They guide us, protect us, and keep the balance. Without them, the world is vulnerable. There is a force that seeks to rise when the stars disappear. It is ancient, older than the earth itself." 5:28, 11:55 p.m. ChatGPT. Isla felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard many stories about the force that lived in the shadows, but no one ever spoke of it seriously. It was always just folklore, something to tell children to make them behave. But now, with the stars gone, it seemed more real than ever. The next day, Isla couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She went to the village square and found the townspeople gathered, murmuring anxiously. The atmosphere was heavy, thick with fear. Even the children were silent, their faces pale and drawn. Isla approached the group and asked a nearby woman what was happening. The woman looked at her with wide, fearful eyes. "The crops are failing. The animals are behaving strangely. And now the river has started to dry up." The river. Elmsford's lifeblood. It had always flowed freely, its waters providing for the village and the land. But now, the once vibrant stream was little more than a trickle. The villagers were desperate. They began to whisper about the old stories, about the legend of the Shadow King, a creature who could only rise when the stars disappeared. They spoke of his power to control the elements, to twist nature itself to his will. And now, it seemed, he was awakening. 5:28, 11:55 p.m. ChatGPT. That night, as Isla lay in bed, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps outside her window. She crept to the edge of the room and peered out into the darkness. There, standing by the old oak tree in her grandmother's yard, was a figure cloaked in shadow. The air around him seemed to shimmer with an unnatural coldness. Isla's heart raced. She knew instinctively that this was the force her grandmother had warned her about. The Shadow King. The one who had been waiting for the stars to fade. Without thinking, Isla grabbed a cloak and quietly slipped out the door. She had to find out who or what this creature was and why it had come to Elmsford. She had heard whispers of an ancient artifact, the Starstone, said to have the power to restore balance and defeat the darkness. The artifact had been lost for centuries, hidden away in a place forgotten by time. As Isla ventured into the woods, her mind raced. She had no idea where the Starstone was or how she could possibly find it, but her instincts told her that it was the only way to save her village. She followed the moonlit path, feeling as though the trees themselves were watching her. The air felt heavier, and every step she took seemed to echo in the silence. 5:28, 11:55 p.m., ChatGPT. Suddenly, she heard a voice. It was a low, eerie sound, like a whisper carried on the wind. "You seek the Starstone, don't you?" Isla froze. She turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a woman, tall and cloaked in flowing white robes. Her face was obscured by a veil, but her eyes, sharp and knowing, pierced through the dark. "Who are you?" Isla demanded, her voice trembling. The woman smiled faintly. "I am the keeper of the Starstone. And you are not the first to seek it. Many have come before you, but none have succeeded. The darkness you face is far more powerful than you can imagine." "I don't care," Isla said, her voice filled with determination. "I will find it. The village is dying. The river is drying up. I have to stop it." The keeper's expression softened. "You have courage, child. But do you understand the cost? The Starstone is not a weapon. It is not a tool to wield. It is a part of the balance of the universe, and to use it, you must be willing to sacrifice everything." Isla felt a knot form in her stomach. "I don't care about the cost. I'll do whatever it takes to save Elmsford." The keeper nodded solemnly. "Very well. Follow me." 5:28, 11:56 p.m., ChatGPT. The woman led Isla deep into the heart of the forest, where the trees grew thick and the air was thick with magic. They arrived at an ancient stone temple, its walls covered in ivy and moss. The entrance was guarded by two large statues of creatures Isla had never seen before, beasts with the bodies of lions and the wings of eagles. The keeper stepped forward and whispered a word in an ancient language. The stone doors of the temple creaked open, revealing a vast chamber. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it, glowing with an ethereal light, was the Starstone. Isla approached the stone, her heart pounding in her chest. As she reached out to touch it, the air around her seemed to shimmer and swirl. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, the same voice she had heard the night before, the Shadow King. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing. I am the darkness, and I will consume this world." Isla's hand hovered over the Starstone. She could feel its power, a raw and untamed force. She knew the decision she had to make. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and touched the stone. 5:28, 11:56 p.m., ChatGPT. In that moment, the entire world seemed to shift. The darkness receded, and the stars began to return to the sky. The river flowed once more, the crops began to thrive, and Elmsford was saved. But Isla, standing in the temple, knew that her life would never be the same again. The Starstone had restored balance, but at a cost. The darkness had been defeated, but Isla had become its new guardian. She had sacrificed her future, her past, and her life as she knew it, to protect her village and the world. And so, she remained in the forest, watching over the Starstone, knowing that the balance of the universe depended on her, and the darkness would never truly disappear. But Elmsford was safe, for now. And Isla, the girl who had once dreamed of adventure, had become the very thing she had once feared, a protector of the stars.